What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Back with the Ego rumor mill. Rumor mill is just like the title suggests. It's a rumor, not official, but it's something to consider coming from a good source. Now, it looks like Gennady, hey, no, guys, Golovkin, he needs an opponent. It doesn't look like that person is going to be Canelo Alvarez. Canelo vacated his belt and just basically handed it over to Gennady Golovkin after saying, we don't fuck around or cut the bullshit or whatever he was saying. So it doesn't look like that's an option. Team Triple G kind of expressed that they don't want to drop down to 155, and I see no real other reason for the vacating of the belt other than that's one way where they can mandate their rules. Because if you're fighting for the WBC belt, you can't force another camp to agree to you. Now, if that camp doesn't know their own worth, or they're not an equal star or some level of a star, then most likely, and we've seen in the past, that they'll give in to whatever you're demanding because they just want the opportunity and the paycheck and they need it. You know what I mean? Like you look at Cotto versus Daniel Gill. Daniel Gill clearly isn't in the position after getting knocked out by Gennady Golovkin a year prior to fighting Miguel Cotto. He wasn't in no position. He only had one fight in between getting knocked out by Triple G and fighting Miguel Cotto. So the point being is Gill wasn't in any position to dictate any terms in a big fight. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you're on the receiving end of that phone call and you hear Cotto wants to fight you at a catchweight. Then most guys in that position, they take it. They got to look after their family, and that's what it is. But with Gennady Golovkin, he's also a popular fighter. Maybe not as popular as Canelo, but he's still popular. He's undefeated. He's a belt holder. He knows his age and he knows his limits. So, I mean, even though he said he'll come down for Mayweather, I guess that's not something he wants to do for just anybody. It has to be for a mega star like a Floyd Mayweather. So it is what it is, whether it's contradictory or not. So I don't see that fight happening. Now, the rumor is Chris Eubank Jr. is really interested in fighting Gennady Golovkin. No date, but obviously it would have to take place after his fight. He has a fight coming up. He's going to be on the card this month with Anthony Joshua versus Dominic Brazil, and that's going to be televised on Showtime. So if you guys got that and you're in the States, you'll be able to watch that fight card. Chris Eubank is fighting Tom Duran. He's a Welshman. He's undefeated. We'll see how he does. I would assume he would have to look good. The guy is, I haven't really seen much of Duran, so I don't really know anything about him. But based on like his box rec and stuff, it doesn't look like he should be able to pull the upset. But you never know. It's boxing. You've seen Andres from Far just get knocked out today, so you don't really know. So if he gets past Tom Duran, then the Chris Eubank fight with Golovkin is certainly something. But see, this is the problem with boxing. A lot of times in boxing, they try to make the fights and negotiate, and it's like puts a curse on the fighters. I remember Golden Boy was trying to make a Canelo versus Victor Ortiz fight, and Victor Ortiz, all he had to do was get past this little known Josecito Lopez, who was moving up from 140, and then he was doing pretty good in the fight. Then he gets his jaw broken, has his mouth open, and the rest is history. And then Josecito Lopez is the guy that goes on to face Canelo in a pure mismatch, and that's kind of what it was. But it's kind of bad when they start planning these fights in advance. I remember Amir Khan, they were talking about, there's articles like at the time saying Mayweather had just beat Cotto, went to jail, and he was considering Amir Khan. All Amir Khan had to do is get past this slow club fighter, they said, named Danny Garcia, and he looked good in that fight for 2 rounds, then got hurt in the 3rd and 4th round and he got stopped in the 4th. So you never really know in boxing. So if Chris Eubank does get past Tom Duran, this opponent, then this is something that I guess they're negotiating currently, and I want to give my thoughts on it. I think it's solid. I think if you look at the middleweight division, and see, this is the thing with new media, I give it to you guys straight. The middleweight division to me is not the most explosive. It's just in general. Golovkin to me is clearly the best guy at middleweight, and that's a credit to his skill set. It's not a stacked division though. You look at welterweight, stacked. What I mean by that is look how many undefeated fighters they have at welterweight. You know what I mean? You have Earl Spence Jr., Danny Garcia, Floyd Mayweather. You got game guys who, you know what I mean, can really on any given night possibly beat anybody with losses. Like let's say a Sean Porter, a Marcos Maidana if he comes back, a Manny Pacquiao. You know what I mean? You got a ton of talent. Sammy Vasquez. You got so many players at the welterweight, even heavyweight. No matter what, there's people who are champions like Deontay Wilder. Put him in there with Luis King Kong Ortiz. You don't really know what happened. Anthony Joshua. Put him in there with any of those dudes. You don't really know what happened. Joshua might be able to beat some of those guys now, like a Tyson Fury. We don't know. You know what I mean? Klitschko. It's just stacked divisions. To me, middleweight's not like that. You have a guy who has an amateur background in Gennady Golovkin. He's a decorated fighter. He's good. He has the power that a lot of people can't withstand at 160. And then you have some other guys who are good. You know what I mean? They would make more good competition for each other more so than Golovkin. And it's kind of like they don't have experience, or they have a couple things. So for me, the Eubank fight is probably top 4, one of the top 4 fights. I think the best fight for me at middleweight right now is Triple G versus Danny Jacobs. I just like that matchup stylistically. Danny Jacobs is a survivor. He's taller than Triple G. He's about 6 foot. He has power. He learned, hopefully, from getting stopped in the Dimitri Pirog fight. Maybe he learned something. He just came off of the Peter Quillin explosive knockout. So if he goes in confident, which I don't know if he wants to fight Golovkin, because it doesn't really seem like it, he may fight Sergio Mora. But if he goes in confident and fights his typical fight, I think that's an interesting matchup. Then I would say probably a guy like Billy Joe Saunders. And then number 3 would probably, for me, probably be Peter Quillin. And then the number 4 would probably be a guy like Chris Eubank. I've always wanted to see Peter Quillin versus Triple G. I would clearly favor Triple G, but Quillin is big and he can crack. So to me, there's only a few ways to beat Golovkin. And I think having power in your arsenal is definitely one of those ways. You know what I mean? You would want to just try to buzz him early and hope he doesn't recover or something like that. And Peter Quillin has the power to hurt people. You have to respect his power. You're not just gonna not, and he's just big, you know what I mean? That's why he was missing weight and stuff like that. So I think the Eubank fight is solid. I think it's probably, like I said, top 4 at middleweight. We'll see. But this is the guy that lost to Billy Joe Saunders. But there are some variables. His dad is a legend in the game, so that's a good corner advice, good instruction. You look at Eubank, he has power. He seems pretty mentally tough, never been stopped, in shape, things like that. His sole loss was to Billy Joe Saunders, who is a champion, so it's not like Billy Joe Saunders is a bum that he lost to. So I want to see it. I think it's a good fight. Certainly, it's a step up in class to me from a guy like Dominic Wade, because Dominic Wade, we didn't really know anything about him. You know what I mean? What was his pedigree? You know what I mean? Look at a guy like Chris Eubank. We at least seen him in there with someone who's still to this day a current champion, someone who even went on to beat like a Andy Lee, who's a champion. Things of that sort. So I give Chris Eubank more, his pedigree a bit more. His dad, his corner. You know what I mean? I don't even know, to this day, I don't even know who Dominic Wade's corner is. I don't know who Dama's corner is. I don't know who was training him. Things like that. So I think it could be a better fight. Willie Monroe, I don't know a lot of, especially at that time, we didn't know much about Willie Monroe. We knew he fought Brian Vera, and that was his biggest fight. And his other biggest fight he lost, which was a Darnell Boone fight. So Chris Eubank fight is solid. If Golovkin is not to move up, he wants to stay in Unify. So if he's not trying to fight a Gilberto Ramirez, DeGale, or somebody at 168, I think that's one of the top 4 middleweight fights that he can fight based on the reasons that I kind of said in this particular video. And we'll see if this fight comes into fruition. But it's Canelo, he kind of disrupts the whole process for Golovkin if you think about it. Like his decision, if he doesn't fight Golovkin, it doesn't just affect him. And maybe that's the goal for Team Canelo, is to throw a monkey wrench in Golovkin. Like, hey, you ain't going to feed off my name and use my name and potentially beat me. You're going to have to earn it on your own. Or you're going to have to come down to 155 and fight me where you're at a disadvantage. That's kind of what it seems like. So it's going to be interesting to see who both fighters pick. I'll tell you right now, and I don't care who doesn't like it, but if Canelo picks a Liam Smith and Golovkin fights a Chris Eubank, then that's again going to make Canelo look really, really bad. Because there's no reason that a guy like Golovkin should be taking on at least top level guys. You know what I mean? Top 10, top 15 guys, whether it's a stacked division or not. He didn't put those fighters in the division. I'm just being real and tell you what I see from the division. But Golovkin is not in charge of orchestrating the division and putting the people there. So you can't blame him for that. He's fighting the names that are available to him, and he's ending it like it should be. Oh, I've never heard of Dominique Wade. He's out of there in 2 rounds. Period. It's like he's not overextending it and letting it go on and having trouble. Or like I said, Fanfare got stopped by a guy I've never even heard of, Joe Smith Jr. Sounds like he makes like pie or something, apple pie. So Golovkin's not doing that. If you don't know about this fighter, he's going to show you why they don't belong in the ring with him. So it'll look real bad on Canelo's part if he fights Liam Smith and Golovkin's in there with the Chris Eubank, because Chris Eubank has some stylistic, I don't even want to say advantages, but it's still a better match than the Liam Smith, because again, Chris is athletic, he has experience, his father in his corner, things of that sort. So it'll be interesting to see. And then you also have to look at the Chris Eubank. I mean, the man like altered somebody's life from just vicious, the brutal fight, the Nick Blackwell. And I'm not saying this as like something to brag about, because it's obviously sad and unfortunate what happened to Nick Blackwell, but that means he's a threat. If you, I mean, anytime you put a fighter, another professional fighter, in the hospital like that, then they have to get into a coma and all that. So Chris Eubank is definitely a solid fight. Maybe if they make it in the UK, and Golovkin's the A side in this equation to me, so Golovkin doesn't have to go over to the UK, but it'd be nice to see something like that if he's willing to go over to the UK, if he wants to do it, just to, I mean, it's at that point, like, no, I don't really see many of these guys at middleweight beating Golovkin, so maybe to make it more intriguing, go over to the UK just to prove, put that extra stamp on your championship pedigree. Again, Golovkin doesn't have to do something like that. That's his option if he would want to do something like that, because he's the A side and he's the undefeated one. So it's just something to, I guess, more, they say he's there for entertaining the fans and stuff. So maybe let the UK fans get to see you and take him out in his backyard if that's what the case is when they actually fight. Let me know what you guys think. Golovkin versus Chris Eubank. Do you love it or you hate it? Drop in the comment section. Make sure you like my video. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.